Yeah, new guys coming to you live. You could bet this like Jerome. New guys are men of steel. Best coverage in the league. Prime Reavers on the field. Don't know better ask. G-Nick, the hype is real. Gurus with the knowledge, you can check the mass appeal. They gon' turn your fantasies into dollar bills, making dynasties from drafts like the Spurs when they build. Want the bragging rights and titles at your work. Let the new guys serve the wisdom to you first. I ain't advertising, just kicking facts. They turn average Joes to Drakes, cause they winning back to backs. So sit back, relax, all ears when they speak, and rain on competition with anything they leak. Make leagues joy gray like Ramsey did Reek. Passing off the mic, I'm out here, peace.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks again, Sean, for that incredible theme song. And I hope everyone is enjoying the warm weather down here. Nick is back in New York, so he's freezing his tail off.
Yep, that's it.
How'd finals go?
They were good. You know, calculus is never fun, but pushed through it. Now I'm sitting in 20-degree weather, coming from 80, so fantastic.
So he was sort of force-fed the holiday spirit. Me, I'm still wearing this from last night, so
The party never stops.
party never stops. Never stop, never settle. Anyways, it's week 15. If all 6 of you are still watching this, 6.5 of you, that means you're in the semis, so congratulations. Or you just have a secret crush on one of us, or both of us.
Wait. Speaking of week 16, last week when me and Gerard were together, we came upon a new idea. We have granted Gerard a new nickname that he will now go by. He will be called the Gravy Train. So if I refer to him as that, just know what I'm talking about.
All aboard the gravy train. Anyways, I'm in the semis versus Jake, who won last year in our league. So that should be a slobber knocker. In my other league, I kind of like the way that hat went. I sort of messed up. I overslept and didn't realize my kicker was playing in a blizzard. And ultimately, it cost me the week. So congratulations, Gertis, a.k.a. Brett, for advancing on my lapse of judgment there. But yeah, the biggest piece of advice, the biggest takeaway from last week, do not play kickers in a blizzard. Sounds like common sense, but just don't do it. Anyways, today's Saturday, so I guess we'll do a quick recap of Thursday's game, Denver Colts. And you're the Colts fan, so take charge.
Not too much to talk about. It's tanking season, so I don't really care about the outcome. CJ Anderson had a huge day. I don't know if anybody started him. If you're at this point in your playoffs, you probably didn't. But he did have a good game. Demaryius Thomas had a few catches, but not too much. On the Colts side, nothing really. Jacoby Brissett never gotten anything going. And the running game never really developed. So hopefully he didn't start T.Y. Hilton or someone like that.
Mm-hmm. Matt in our league did start CJ, and it worked out pretty well for him.
Wow, I didn't see that.
Smart man. Yeah, there's really no playoff implications from this. The only thing highly doubtful, Denver's now 5-9. So they're still 3 games back in the AFC West. So I guess that really doesn't play into effect at all. But just to briefly touch on the AFC West, Kansas City and the Chargers are tied at 7-6, and I think KC has the tiebreaker. Is it just me, or do the Chargers seem head and shoulders like the better team out of them?
100%. They have all the momentum going, too. I don't think it'll be close. I think Chargers will definitely win.
Yeah, I agree. The Chargers look great on both ends of the ball right now, and Kansas City's just sort of been fumbling for the last almost 2 months, we'll say. So, I mean, anything can happen, but the Chargers seem to be rolling, and ironically enough, they play tonight. That is one of our 2 Saturday games, and I think I have the Chargers winning.
Mhm.
Personally, I'm hoping for a huge game from Kareem Hunt.
Yep.
But I just think the Chargers are the better team at this point. They've gotten Hunter Henry heavily involved. Keenan Allen is the greatest wide receiver in football over the last month or so. And I just don't think Kansas City can really stop Phillip Rivers, who's been playing out of his mind.
Yeah, I agree. They don't really have any weaknesses on that team.
Mm-hmm. The other game today is Chicago at Detroit, which Chicago has some good games and some bad games. Their defense is a little underrated, but I think Detroit should win pretty convincingly overall. I just think they're the better team.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears aren't really playing for anything, too. They're in the same situation as the Colts. Get best draft pick possible. Lions, maybe there's some hope they make it to the playoffs. I don't know, but they're definitely a better team.
Speaking of hope of making it to the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers is back.
He's back.
Aaron Rodgers is back. And although their playoff chances are sort of slim, if anyone can do it, it's him.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been getting asked just as much as me, what does this mean for Jordy Nelson, everyone else? I think you know what it means for Jordy. He's going to be a top 10 receiver for the rest of the season, despite a decently tough schedule. The biggest impact, I'd say, and I wouldn't downgrade Devontae Adams, but I think he'll get less targets. You know, he was sort of Huntley's go-to, whereas Rodgers, it's more of an even split at this point.
Yeah, he'll still be heavily involved in the offense, though. You know, Aaron Rodgers, he's one of those guys. He kind of just like elevates the entire team. You know, he's the most valuable player for a reason. You know, in past seasons, because he does everything for that team. He holds them together. So I'd expect every single part of that team to get an upgrade. Maybe not Jamal Williams though, because now there'll be less of a reliance on the run. So that could change things.
That was going to be my next question for you. They want Williams to remain the workhorse there, and you think they'll start leaning more heavily on the pass?
I do, yeah.
I'd say that's a fair assumption. I mean, defenses won't be able to stock the box. I think Jamal Williams will still have pretty significant value for the rest of the season. Just don't expect him to continue doing what he's been.
Mhm.
You know, he'll take a step back. Damian Williams is not playing this week. Do you think Drake will have another big game?
They play Bills, right?
They're playing the Bills at Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know last week you can't really assess a team in that snowstorm they played in, but the Bills' run defense kind of got torn up by Frank Gore, and Kenyon Drake's pretty hot right now, so I could see him having a pretty big game too.
Last week, he looked so explosive. He really did.
Yeah.
Tape don't lie. And, I mean, anything can happen. It might be another snow game in Buffalo. So he might get 30-plus touches by default.
Jeez, if Frank Gore could get 130 yards on 30 touches, I wonder how many Kenyon Drake could get.
I'm going to say he'll have, if it's another snow game and the game script plays out how last week did, I think Drake will have about as many rushing yards as Antonio Brown had last week receiving. And just for those of you who missed
so
it,
like
it was over
210
200.
or something. I could see that.
Which, speaking of Antonio Brown, who do you have winning that game? And why? Because
I have the Patriots.
Where's at Pitt?
Yeah, I don't doubt it for a second. I think the Patriots are winning. Every year they have trouble in Miami. It just happens all the time. They always have difficult. You could even see before the game spread, like it was only Patriots minus like a small number when it should have been much higher, just because every single year, like they know they have trouble there. I think the Patriots are definitely a better team. The Steelers have been winning a bunch of close games, but they always play to their level of competition. I think the Patriots will win easily.
I sort of disagree there.
Okay.
And, you know, there's really no wrong answer. Like, this is going to be one of the best games on the docket this week. I just think Pittsburgh's home Patriots defense has been pretty banged up throughout the season, so they have a few, rookies playing significant time. And I agree. I think Miami and the Patriots, just because they're in each other's division, the two teams know each other so well. But I just think, Pittsburgh's got the better defense at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it'll be like a 45-40 game, but the Steelers D, what they let up 40 points to the Ravens offense last week? See, I just don't know how that holds up against Joe Flacco and people like that. So I think it'll be a high-scoring game, definitely.
It should be a shootout. You're starting any and every one you have on either.
Rex Burkhead, someone like that, just toss him in. Make sure you get that guy in your flex.
Chris Hogan, all of them. They're all in your lineups. I don't think Juju Smith-Schuster is playing.
Oh, really? He's out again?
I think so. So would you take a flyer on Martavis Bryant? I think at this point, if you're in the semifinals,
You probably don't need him.
probably have a decent roster.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on your roster. But yeah, again, if you're at this point, you probably don't need him. Personally, I like him this week just because I feel like he's bound to get a long touchdown or something because it's going to be a shootout.
I like him this week too, and that was someone I looked into very briefly, but Devin Funchess against Green Bay's,
Yeah, I'd start Devin Funchess.
secondary. Yeah, I just figured I really don't need a receiver. It would be a 1 week fill-in, and I don't want to deviate from what's worked. But yeah, if for some reason you're very thin at receiver and looking for a desperation punt, Martavis Bryant is one that could pan out. Do you think there's any chance the Giants beat Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles this week?
No, not at all.
Even without Carson Wentz?
No, I think the Eagles are just too well-rounded of a team. They're kind of like the Chargers. They don't have any weakness except for quarterback now, obviously.
We've seen Foles have success in an Eagles uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I still think the Eagles are going to go pretty far in the playoffs. I had them going to the Super Bowl. I don't really have that anymore, but I can still see them make it to the NFC Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Foles, kind of like a tale of two careers. Started off maybe the best start ever for a quarterback. His first season, he had 28 touchdowns and like 2 interceptions or something like that. I don't know the numbers, but like those are MVP numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Then you kind of saw him flail out for the rest of his career, but
Mm-hmm.
this isn't a good team. They don't need him to do that much. He just needs to operate that offense. The defense will take care of things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it'll be
Evanson, O-line, great receivers.
Jay Ajayi might get a lot more opportunities now. So
They'll probably be incorporated a lot more. And their defense is great as well, and their special teams. They're very well rounded. Like you said, their only potential weakness is quarterback, and that's something they can overcome. I don't see them making it to the Super Bowl now, but I could see them going deep into the playoffs.
yeah, and I mean Foles isn't. He's not like I don't know what the word is. Like he's not like an interception machine. He's kind of like a game manager, kind of like an Alex Smith or someone like that. So he just has to do his part. Throw for 200 yards a game and he could get them a win or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like an Alex Smith or
Yeah, they don't need him to do Superman stuff like Rodgers or Luck or something like that.
maybe a better Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, we could call him that. Speaking, where do you think he's going to play next year? Isn't his contract up?
I think it is. It's hard to say where he'll go. Maybe Cleveland.
Maybe. If they don't draft the quarterback, one.
Again, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe Cleveland, just because Kaiser, it's 1 year, but that's just it. It's 1 year, and Kaiser doesn't look like he's their franchise quarterback.
I mean, when Josh Gordon's on the field, it changes things, though.
That's true. They have looked better, and that's part of the reason why I have them upsetting Baltimore this week. Baltimore's phenomenal defense got torched last week. And I know it's a long shot, but Cleveland's home. They had last week in the bag, and they choked. Mm-hmm. They should have beat Green Bay last week. They're featuring Josh Gordon. If they were to get a win at all this year, I think despite the tough matchup, this would be the week. Just because They're probably disappointed in themselves for losing last week. They'll get a better pick because of it, but I just think that game's going to be a lot closer than it looks on paper.
Okay, I can see that.
But speaking of quarterbacks going elsewhere next year, where do you think Kirk Cousins is going to wind up? Does he get franchised again?
Yeah, no, I think he stays with Washington. I think the ongoing saga continues. If San Fran did not trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, I would 100% said he'd be going there, but he looks like the guy in San Fran. Garoppolo, he's won his last 2 games? Has he played 2 or 3 games?
He came in at the end of 1 game, but yeah, they've won 2 games.
Okay, yeah. He won his 2 starts. So
and I actually have them winning this week, too.
They play the Titans, right?
The gravy train is all aboard the Garoppolo train.
The gravy train. Yeah. The Titans have looked pretty awful lately.
Yeah, I think the Jags have that division. They're a game up. They still play each other one more time this year.
Yeah, the Jags
Titans
got it.
one of those teams where their record is better than their team is at this point. If you just watch them play.
They're just not a good team. Mariota can't do anything.
Yep.
Speaking of, Mariota and Winston are both doing awful this year. I don't know where that came from.
The best 2 parts of Mariota's game is actually in the red zone. He's very efficient when they get to the red zone, and his rushing. But other than that, quite a bit of picks. He's been banged up throughout the year. Their secondary can't stop anyone.
Yeah.
So I just think they're very exploitable as a team. Tevin Coleman has been ruled out today, so 20 touches for Devontae Freeman maybe against Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, they usually tear up the Buccaneers. I know Freeman will get touches, but the guy you really want on your team in that situation is Julio Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw a stat. It was like his last 5 games against the Buccaneers, he has 750 yards and like 7 touchdowns or something like that. And, I mean, you saw it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when he had, 250 yards and 2 touchdowns or something. So I think it'll be a big day for this entire offense, but
I think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be. And that's Monday night, right?
I think that is the Monday game. Yeah, Monday night at Tampa. And I do want to get your opinion on something on the Tampa side. So last week I did the podcast without you because you had finals and stuff.
Yeah.
And I made a handful of calls about players.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually pretty off on. I had made a bunch of pretty incorrect calls, but probably the worst one was I thought Cameron Brate would be a top 5 tight end with Winston back and a decent matchup. And his snap count continues to diminish, and they continue to incorporate O.J. Howard more. To the point where I just dropped Cameron Brate. I want no part of it anymore. But I know they want to get their rookie more involved, but do you think Cameron Brate still has any value?
I don't. They're kind of at this point in the season where play your young players, see what they can do, develop for the future. I don't know what Brate's contract situation is, but I know they have Howard pretty cheap for the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'll just keep trying to get him the ball and see what he can do with it. Work on something for next year.
Mm-hmm. Is there any game or player specific that you wanted to discuss or touch on?
Let me get my phone. Put on the spot here. Let's see what games we got.
We could touch on Dallas and Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can talk about that. Must win for Dallas. They're still trying to get in, so.
You think Dallas is still looking to get in?
Yeah, they'd have to win out and other things to happen, but it'd be a total cowboy move to win their last 3 games and not make the playoffs and get, like, the last pick in the draft before, like, a playoff spot, so.
Yeehaw, cowboy move.
So let's hope.
Yeah. I think Oakland actually is a dark horse in that division, and I think they're 6 and 7 right now, so I think they have something to play for. Their home. Marshawn Lynch has actually played really well recently.
Yeah, he has.
3 or 4 games. So I mean, again, I still think, and you do as well, that the Chargers are the best team in the AFC West. But technically, the Raiders are only one game out. So I think just because they have more to play for than Dallas does at this point, I think Oakland will pull out a tough win.
Okay, how about this game, the Rams and Seahawks, maybe the second best game of the week?
I have the Seahawks winning it. Russell Wilson, the way I see it is, it's a divisional game. Anything can happen. But Russell Wilson just put up phenomenal numbers and possibly should have beaten Jacksonville. There were 2 holds on that last play.
Yeah.
No flag thrown. And, you have to take it with a grain of salt. They still would have had to score the touchdown. So anyone could have won that game, but Russell Wilson has been carrying that team all year and put them in a position to win on the road across the country.
Oh.
So I think Seattle will win just because Russell Wilson's playing at an MVP caliber level.
Mm-hmm.
Goff has played well, their defense, and I think the Rams get Robert Woods back this week.
I think so. I have the Seahawks winning, though, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Russell Wilson has been playing insane this year. I think they know they need to win this to get into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it'll be a decent scoring game, maybe something like 31-28.
Yeah, something like that.
Seattle's defense is so banged up, the Rams should have their way with it. And then Russell Wilson will scramble and make plays happen, predominantly in the fourth, but hopefully all game because he's my quarterback. So I think it's going to be a reasonably high-scoring game, but yeah, I have Seattle pulling it out. And the emergence of Mike Davis is pretty nice to see. They've fumbled at running back all year long. Carson, Rawls, Lacey, you name it, they've tried any and everything. And Russell Wilson, I think, has been their leading rusher.
Yeah, probably.
So it's, not so much for this year, but just going forward. It's nice to see that they have something blossoming there a little.
So let's finish with this. So Vegas right now, they have odds to win this MVP for each player. Brady's 1 right now. Wilson's 2, Wentz is 3, but that's probably not going to happen because he's out. So let's say he's out. Mm-hmm. So the 4th person, who's probably the 3rd person right now, is Antonio Brown at 10-1 odds. A wide receiver has never won the MVP. Do you think it could be the first year that happens? Let's say Wilson doesn't make the playoffs or something.
I think it could, and here's why. As you said, Wentz is out for the year, so I don't think it'll be him, which is unfortunate but true.
Mm-hmm.
So really, next it's either Brady or Wilson. There's a decent chance Seattle doesn't make the playoffs, and if they don't, like you said, I can see him being eliminated from that conversation. Brady, the Patriots, I'm pretty sure they've already clinched the division.
Yeah, but...
So, actually, no, technically they haven't, but, at 10-3, they're shooing for playoffs, and Brady's always in the discussion, but he's had a few bad games throughout the year. He didn't play great last week. Week 1 against Kansas City was arguably his worst game in the last 4 or 5 years, maybe. So, that it depends how he plays, but if Antonio Brown continues to put up, 150-yard, 200-yard games, multiple touchdown games, and if the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Patriots tomorrow, then I think he's firmly in the discussion and rightfully deserves to be.
Yeah, and I mean Brady, it's kind of like a LeBron situation. LeBron should win MVP every single year.
But
he won't. It's kind of with Brady, and if J.J. Watt was still in the league, he has 3 defensive players. They're not going to give him any more because why? You already know who he is. So I actually think Antonio Brown will win MVP.
I think he could. I don't think he will. It would be nice to see, a receiver get recognized like that, but like you said, it just doesn't happen. So
yeah, I mean other names on the list you had.
Big Ben's been playing great the last month. I know he's not in the discussion.
Yeah, he wasn't in it really. I saw Jared Goff wasn't too far back. Todd Gurley.
Smith at the beginning of the year, but he's fallen.
Yeah, he was, but he fell off
I'm going to throw another name out at you. Phillip Rivers. He's been playing really
He has been playing really good.
the last 2 months. For most of the season, he's played pretty well.
Yeah, he's not really getting any recognition. I think because right now the Chargers' record doesn't really show it. What are they, 7-6?
Yeah.
I
But
think
if they win this divisional game tonight,
if they run the tables, if they win out, I could see him getting a lot of hype over it.
if they win out, he should get it because they've won 4 straight. Kansas City, we discussed this earlier. We think the Chargers are the better team.
Mm.
Their remaining schedule at Jets, who they should beat, and then home against the Raiders, who again a divisional game, but they could beat. So they've won 4 straight, and they could very possibly win 7 straight to end the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If that's the case, I would like it to go to Russell Wilson. He's done so much for that team.
Yeah.
Their pass protection is terrible. But if the Chargers win out, I'd say it's a 4-horse race then, between Brady, Wilson, AB, Antonio Brown, and the Chargers. But yeah. Oh, one other thing I want to touch on. How do you think Kerwin Williams does without Peterson playing?
I don't really think there's much of an effect. Who do they play this week? They play the Redskins.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a good defense they're going against. I actually think the Cardinals will win that game. They were underdogs, but I still have them winning. I don't think he really does too much. Before they acquired Peterson in that trade with the Saints, you saw they kind of Williams was the head guy, but they kind of did by committee approach, and no one really stood out in that backfield. So I don't think anything really develops there.
Yeah, he'll probably continue to get a good amount of carries, but I'd agree. He's not going to win you the league. He's not going to all of a sudden become Kenyon Drake or Deion Lewis.
And again, if you're in your championship or semifinals, you probably don't need Kerwin Williams as one of your starting running backs.
And that's really all we had on the table for today. Make sure to set your lineups because the Chicago-Detroit game kicks off at 4:30 today. So there are 2 games today, a full Sunday docket, and then the Monday night game. So just make sure to get to it today instead of waiting for the morning. And best of luck in your semifinal bout. Nick, say hi to the family.
Yep. Peace.